Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. This is one out of many. I'm just trying to bring some value to YouTube. So today we're going to be talking about unsuccessful people and successful people. Because a lot of people they think that talent separates, and they believe gifts separate people, which I do believe in talents and I do believe in gifts, right? But the biggest thing that separates the winners from the people that aren't winning, from what I've seen, I have an agency, over 2,000 licensed agents. I have a pretty big business, and I worked with a bunch of big realtors, a bunch of big mortgage lenders, and I know people in basically every industry. And I kind of study people. That's what I like to do. I like to study habits. I like to study people, especially the people who are winning and the people that aren't winning. And what happens is the biggest difference that I've seen is mindset. So we're going to be talking about some things that really separates the people that are winning big time. Because if you guys are really interested in learning about successful people, I'll tell you the common characteristics that they have. I always tell people there's common denominators for everything, right? It's like, this is a terrible example, but let's just say the guy's had 5 divorces, and the girl, you're crazy to think, if you're a woman, you think that you're going to change that man. He's probably not going to change. He's the common denominator in every divorce. So there's common denominators for success, and there's common denominators for not winning. So we're going to be talking about that today, okay? All right. In my opinion, the only separation between successful people and non-successful people is 2 things: their mindset, so the way they think, and their heart. Because sometimes people have good thinking, but their heart's not in the right place, or they don't have fire, and that holds them back from winning. And then sometimes people have fire, but their thinking's kind of poverty thinking, or thinking of lack, or just something's blocking their success in their mind, right? I always tell people the most powerful real estate that you could own is right here in between in between this temple and this temple. So I'm just gonna show you guys some key indicators from success versus non-success. Okay, so a couple traits that stand out in mindset, right, is one, the process of evaluating. So poor, not poor people, because when I say poor, I mean poor in mind, right? And when I talk about wealthy, I'm talking about wealthy in mind, because as a man thinketh, he becometh. It's biblical. As you think, you become. And when I talk about wealthy in the mind, that's going to create a wealthy lifestyle. That's going to create a lot of wealth. It's going to create wealthy relationships. It's going to create wealthy, habits, wealthy, monetarily, right? And then also with the, poverty thinking, it's going to create poor relationships. It's gonna create poor lifestyle, poor money, right? And one of the biggest things that stand out to me when I was thinking about this, I'm like, man, what really separates people? I'm just going off the top of my head of what I believe are the things that stand out the most, right? And the first one that came up in my mind was the process of evaluating, right? You guys, everybody knows, they both know, successful people, unsuccessful people, they both know there's a price to pay. The difference is how they evaluate that price, right? And because we've all heard of the story about, you take there's a painting on the wall, and the dad tells the kid to take the painting to a museum, and take it to a pawn shop. The pawn shop only gave the kid $100, and the museum gave the kid $1 million, right? So evaluating is big. And what holds people back is how they evaluate, or what propels people forward is how they evaluate. So they both know there's a price. The difference is how they see the price. So if I'm looking at something and I think it's worth X amount of dollars versus Y amount of dollars, it could affect the way I move on that product. Unsuccessful people, poverty-minded people, tend to undervalue things that they want. And you guys, what I mean by that is for example, there's a price to pay to take care of your family. There's a price to pay for success. And then they look at all the things that create that price, and then they start to undervalue it, right? So how do they undervalue it? Oh man, I don't think it's worth that, right? So like, for example, like let's just say you have a car, right? Let's say the market value of that car is 50,000, but the person is only seeing that car is worth 30,000. But then there's another person that knows the true value, so person A is only willing to pay 30,000 for that $50,000 car. Person B is willing to pay 50,000 for that $50,000 car. The only thing that changed was the perspective on how they evaluate, a product, or, a price of winning, or a price of success, right? And, like, for example, I always tell guys, everybody wants a Lamborghini, dude. I remember growing up, and I saw my first Lamborghini when I was 14 years old. I was born and raised in Pacoima. I went to San Fernando High School in, the San Fernando Valley. And I remember seeing my first Lamborghini, and I'm like, dude, what the heck kind of car is that, right? Because, this is kind of before social media. This is before, people were really Googling, like, everything, right? And I remember seeing my first Lamborghini, and I'll tell you something. Most people want a Lamborghini, right? And look, I'm gonna tell you something. I remember when I was, poor-minded and I was broke-minded, and I remember, this is early in my business. I had bought a 2019 Z06 Corvette, brand new. I bought it in 2018. I'm assuming at the time I was 19 or 20 years old, and I remember buying that car, and it was 650 horsepower, 650 pounds of torque. And I remember my friends were telling me, oh, bro, when are you going to get a Lamborghini? When are you going to get a Ferrari? And I would talk smack about Lamborghini because I'm like, man, my Corvette has 650 pounds of torque, 650 horsepower, and a Huracan only has, I believe it's like 550. I didn't do the research. That's totally on my part. But I think it's 600 to 580 horsepower, right? And it's funny because I own a Lamborghini. It's funny because I own a Lamborghini, right? I actually own a Huracan Evo, and it's crazy how I don't know the horsepower, right? Man, okay. But I just know that the Huracan's less than the Corvette, and I remember talking smack about Lamborghini. I'm like, man, why am I going to pay $300,000? I bought my Huracan for $330,000. This was when the market was a little high, right? And I was like, why am I going to go spend $300,000 on a car when I get more bang for my buck paying $100,000 for my Z06? I'm like, and I was telling my friends, at the end of the day, dude, my Z06 is gonna burn that Lamborghini. But when I was talking all this smack, right? But it's really because I didn't see the value. I was undervaluing the Lamborghini. I did not believe the Lamborghini was worth $300,000. And I believed that my $100,000 car was better than my $300,000 Lamborghini, right? And now I own a Lamborghini. And I remember my first time hopping in it. And when I hopped in that car, I was like, okay, let's see what because, we hear the hype and, you hear this and this. Lamborghinis are sick cars. We know they look cool, right? We know that they look cool. But I just I wanted to experience it for myself, right? So I get in the car. I just know it's worth $330 at this point. And I get in the car and I start driving it. And I remember telling my brother-in-law, Deshaun, me and Deshaun were in the car, and I was like, Deshaun, this car is not overpriced, it's underpriced. I'm like, Deshaun, if I was going to spend on this car, I would literally buy it for $500,000. That's like probably my max I would go on it. So what changed from me thinking I would never pay $300,000 for a Lamborghini to now me thinking $300,000 is cheap for this car? And the only thing that was different was the way I valued it and the way I saw it and the way I experienced it, right? And that's what people do in business. That's what people do in relationships. That's what people do when they have to pay the price for something, right? What happens is you go into the store and the first thing that most people check is the price. They say, okay, this is worth $20. And then the second question that they follow up with is this worth? And we do this subconsciously, right? So the first thing that people do is they look at the price tag and they say, $50 or $20 or $100 or maybe $10,000. And then they start thinking to themselves, is this worth $20? Is this worth $10. And what happens a lot of the times is unsuccessful people actually undervalue things, and successful people actually overvalue things. And I'm going to explain that right now. I'm going to explain that. And what I mean by that is, successful people, there's a price to pay, right? And in business, there's a, like, for example, if I'm talking to a kid or maybe a young man or a young woman that says, hey, Danny, I want to retire my mom and dad. I want to take my family out the hood, or I want to take my family into a better situation, or I want to put my sister or my brother in the best private schools. I want to give a better life for them. And then these guys are wanting to get mentored, and I lay out everything that they need to do. Okay, you have to change your environment. I'm just gonna skip a couple times, right? So there's a price in success. There's a price for success in business, and these are some outstanding things that I see that people need to do to win in business, right? So number one is, when I'm laying out the price for success to these new people, or maybe to someone in a different industry. Sorry guys, my chair. Okay. Or maybe to a different industry, and I'm laying these things out. This is what you need to do. This is the price for success. And just a couple outstanding things that I see, right? Number one is, you got to change your environment. You guys, and your environment is 100%, you control the environment you're in. What happens is, imagine I'm addicted to alcohol, and every single Friday, every single Saturday, I'm hanging out with my friends who are alcoholics. It's going to be terribly, terribly tough for me to get off alcohol, right? But if I start hanging out with people who despise alcohol, because I always tell my guys, you only tolerate what you don't hate. So once you start hating alcohol, that change is easy. But if you don't hate alcohol yet, it's every time your friends who are alcoholics are going to call you, it's going to be, oh, you know what? Just one more Friday, one more weekend, one more party, right? One more this, one more that, one more this. And what happens is, they never get away because they never change their environment. So number one is, one of the prices for success is, you need to change your environment. And this could go in a mental environment, right? Like, for example, I feel like a lot of the reasons why people quit business is because, their mindset or their environment at home, or their, because the environment is where we're at, right? And sometimes, young kids get into business at 20 years old, 21 years old, 19 years old. And then they go home and they're excited about their business. They're excited. They're like, man, like, this is going to change my life. Or you know what? Like, I got this idea today, Dad. This is what and then their environment is negative. So it's kind of hard to be positive in a negative environment. Like, I host meetings, 500, 600 people every, twice a week. And these are my trainings for for some of my new licensed agents. And I think one of the biggest things is, like, anybody could stay fired up in a positive environment. It's easy to stay positive in a positive environment. But the thing is, when they go home, it's hard to stay positive in a negative environment. So you either do something that most people can't do. Most people can't stay positive in a negative environment, or we change our environment. We change where we live. We change who we hang out with. We change who we associate with. We change, there's something called the power of association. We change it, or you're going to be a product of it. So number one, that's one of the prices for success, is you have to change your environment. Number two is, you have to become a new you. You have to give up a life that you used to live, right? I know with me, I had to give up a life I used to live. I used to be the party guy. I used to be the person that wanted to hang out every weekend. I used to be the person that, that I was living an average and ordinary lifestyle. That's why it gave me an average and ordinary life, because you are a product of your habits. And what controls your habits? The way you think. So the way you think controls your habits, and your habits create your life. And because I was thinking average, I had average habits, and I had average lifestyle. My average lifestyle designed an average life, right? And until I switched the way I thought, until I was like, man, I started questioning things. I started saying, am I really meant to be here? Is this a talk that I should be having? And you start questioning these things internally. And dude, if you're a winner, you know what I'm talking about. And you start questioning these things because your thinking's changing. But what stops most people is what happened. There's always I kind of picture like a little road, right? What happens from the thought to the habit? Does it get crushed on the way? Because your thinking starts to change, but do you ever let your thinking go into your habit? Because most people, the habit's so cemented into their life, when their thinking starts to change, that habit's hard to break. So what you need to do is you have to be okay with breaking old habits. And because your thinking could start changing, but if the habits never change, your life will never change. So number two is you have to become a new version of yourself, and you have to be okay with letting go of your schedule. You have to be okay with letting go of your old ways. You have to be okay with it. And once you're okay with it, now you're allowing for your thinking to change your habits. Number three is you have to grow your thinking and grow your leadership. I remember joining financial services, and I remember telling my friends, man, dude, if I could just make $100,000 a year by the time I graduate, because I joined at 19 years old. I had no background on insurance. I had no background on anything we did, right? And I just remember telling my friends, man, if I could just make $100,000 a year by the time I'm 25 years old, I'm set for life. Like, and because, 100,000 a year is a lot of money, but not in California, right? But, coming from where I come from, right? My mom was on EBT. My dad was on EBT. We lived in a, garage with my grandma, it's just, where I'm coming from, 100,000 was like, whoa, like, dang, dude, 100,000 a year, man. Like, that's a great life. And my thinking was small. And as I started getting around bigger thinkers, I started thinking, man, 100,000 a year. How do people, how are you supporting yourself like that? When I started hanging out with people who are making 100,000 a week, 100,000 every couple of days, or 100,000, every 2 weeks, I started hanging out with people who are making serious money, and I started looking at things different. So you have to grow your thinking, and you have to grow your leadership. You guys, business, is 90% leadership skills, 10% product knowledge. If you look at some of the best organizations in the world, like Chick-fil-A, they have great leadership. Why? Because Chick-fil-A, they mastered the servanthood leadership. And so if you want to grow your business, I always tell people, most people, they're so focused on growing their numbers, they're so focused on growing their sales. When's the last time you focused on growing you? And you have to be more focused on growing you than growing your numbers. So you have to grow your leadership. Number four is you have to be in conquer mode 24/7 for a couple years. I remember my first 4 years in business, I was in conquer mode 24/7. And you guys, what does conquer mode look like, right? Conquer mode is like, when you go home, all you're thinking about is growing. When you go to the bathroom, all you're thinking about is being number one. When you go into anywhere you go, you're thinking about being the best. Everywhere you go about, and you have to be in conquer mode for a couple of years to be successful in what you do. So when I lay out the prices for success, right? So we're just going to recap real quick. Number one is change your environment. Number two is you have to become a new version of yourself. Number three is you have to grow your thinking and your leadership. Number four is you have to be in conquer mode 24/7. And what happens is when poverty-minded people look at the price, when broke minded people look at that price, and they look at the price for success, because all of those things are a part of the price. When they look at the price for success, they undervalue it. So I'll tell them, like, hey, look, this is the price, because there's a price and a prize kind of scenario, right? There's a price to pay, but there's a prize that you're gonna get. So I tell them, this is the price, but the prize you're gonna get, your mom and dad are going to be taken care of for the rest of their life. You'll move your family out the city that you're living in. You'll have millions of dollars saved. You'll have the lifestyle that you want, because honestly, anybody wants a great lifestyle. Anybody wants a lot of money. Anybody wants a Lamborghini. Anybody wants a big house. Anybody wants all those things. But the difference is successful people value it different than unsuccessful people. So when I'm laying out the price that they have to pay versus the prize, right? What happens is unsuccessful people undervalue the price. So what happens, I don't think it's worth all that, right? And then they start bargaining with themselves in their head. I don't want to change my environment. If that's a price I have to pay, I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if that's worth a nice car. I don't know if that's worth retiring my mom and dad, of changing my environment, of becoming a new me. Because, people are reluctant to change. People don't like to change. People, it's look, like I was reading a book. Our fingernails grow, they change, right? Our skin grows, our blood cells, we create new blood cells. We cut our, I got a haircut today. Come on, okay. You get a haircut, your hair is gonna grow back, right? So everything genetically and biologically grows, but sometimes people think it's an unnatural thing to grow because you're hanging around with people who'd never grown. I remember I went to a family barbecue. I'm not going to say what family because I have a bunch of family. I'm Mexican. Come on, hallelujah. Come on. So I go to a family barbecue, and I go, and it's with some of my cousins, and I'm not going to say what was happening, but I show up, and they were playing the same music I remember going to the parties when I was 5 years old. And it was the same songs, the same conversations, the same liquor, right? The same Coors Light, right? The same, the same Modelo, and the same talks, the same conversations. The only thing is people looked a little older, and we think it's an unnatural thing to grow because most of the times you're in environments where it's not growing. You're with people who are not growing. And so you start to believe it's an unnatural thing, but in reality, God created us to grow. Everything about our body grows, but when's the last time you intentionally try to grow your mind? And so unsuccessful people undervalue, successful people overvalue. When you show a successful person the price, all those prices I just listed, this is the price you need to pay to be successful. This is the price you're going to get. Successful people look at the price and they say, that's it? That's all I have to do? I thought I would have to do more. So successful people overvalue the price, non-successful undervalue. So kind of think about it like this, right? Right. So imagine, there's a car for $300,000, right? Let's say a Lamborghini, right? And I only believe it's worth $100,000. So I would only be willing to pay up to $100,000, but in reality, the price is $300,000, right? And then there's another guy willing to pay the $300,000, right? That's kind of how success is, the price never changes. It's just the person viewing the price. That's what matters. And so when wealthy people look at the price, they overvalue and say, that's it. So how do you look at the price, right? So if you need to change the way you evaluate things, this is what you do. So if you don't know, if you want confirmation, because I always love getting confirmation. That's why I love reading. That's why I love learning, is because when you're reading, it confirms your thinking like, dang, okay, I'm doing a good job, right? And when you're reading, it also corrects you, right, in ways that you need, right? So that's how a mentor works, right? So if you don't know if your thinking's in the right place, if you don't know if your evaluation's in the right place, get a mentor. And you guys, there's people, I got a mentor. Who's your mentor? Like who? Tell me. Like what are their fruits? Even the Bible, it talks about judge a man by his fruit. So this is your business mentor, but he has a little business, right? This is your life coach. Well, let me see his lifestyle, right? This is your marriage counselor. Let me see their marriage, right? And so what happens is if you want to if you want to confirm or correct the way you evaluate things, get a mentor who's successful, and say, hey, you know what, man? Hey, you know what, coach? Right? I call my mentors coach. Hey, you know what, coach? Am I looking at this? Is this really worth what I'm willing to pay? And ask them how they see what you see. And if they see it the same way you see it, you're on the right track. And if they don't see it the way you see it, you need to correct it. So that's how you change the way you evaluate things, right? So that's the first trait that I was like, whoa, like that's the first thing I think of when I think of success and non-successful people. And number 2 is how they view learning, right? Successful people view learning a lot different than unsuccessful people. Look, someone who wants to be successful in anything they do, if it's business, if it's their faith, if it's relationships, health, when someone truly wants to be successful at what they do, they are hungry to learn how to succeed at the highest levels. I remember when I came into financial services, I was so I'm still hungry. I'm so hungry. But like when I remember when I joined, that was like the first time my hunger ever got unlocked. Because I'm like, man, I saw the prize, and I wanted to know the price, and I wanted to know the fastest way and the most efficient way to get results. So I remember going to my mentor all the time. I would probably call him like 15, 20 times a day. Hey, Danny, how do I do this? Hey, Danny, how do I do that? Hey, Danny, am I doing a good job on this? Hey, Danny, what do you want me to do? And I would call because I was so hungry to learn, right? And that's how successful people view learning, is they're hungry to learn. Unsuccessful people aren't hungry to learn. Look, what made Kobe Bryant great was his hunger to learn. You guys, look, if you look at Kobe and you really look at him, right? He wasn't the biggest. He was 6'6". LeBron James is 6'9". He wasn't the strongest. He wasn't the fastest. John Wall would smoke him in a race. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the quickest. But why was he one of the best to ever do it? Even though all his physical attributes were maybe 8 out of 10 instead of 10 out of 10. You look at LeBron James. He was invented to play basketball, right? Kobe Bryant, he had gifts, but not as high as LeBron's. But why was Kobe one of the best players to ever do it? And the reason why, his hunger to learn. There's countless interviews of people talking about his hunger to learn. You listen, I dare you, YouTube, Kobe Bryant, people talking about Kobe Bryant. And all they talk about is his hunger, his curiosity to learn. And that's what made Kobe Bryant great. And when you talk to someone who's not chasing to be great at what they do, so when you're talking to like someone average and ordinary that aren't trying to be great at what they do, they are very narrow-minded and aren't open to learning. They're very narrow-minded, like they're not open to learning. They're not hungry to learn. And how do you identify? Because like if you're a business owner, you're a leader, maybe you own a real estate agency, or maybe you own an insurance team, or maybe you're trying to grow your sales. So how do you identify people who aren't willing to learn? Try to teach them something, but remember, before you teach them, you got to have some results behind it. That's a law in leadership. You got to lead from the front. So if you're doing all the right things and you have the proof and you have the track record, and you want to know how to find out if your person's teachable, if he's hungry to learn, try to teach him something and see if his heart is listening. Because I know you guys, especially if you're a leader on this, watching this video right now, you could talk to somebody and they're not present. Or you could be talking to someone and their heart is really in it. And so try to teach your guy something new. And if his heart is listening, he's hungry to learn. And if his heart is not listening, he's not hungry to learn. And I don't work with people who aren't hungry to learn. If you wanna have success, you need to be hungry to learn. And look, check this out. Successful people know if they can't lead. So success, look, every successful person I've ever met, they know if they stop learning, they'll stop leading. You have to be a constant learner. You have to want to learn something new every day. Unsuccessful people believe in the arrive theory, right? Like I arrived. Like for example, it's kind of like the managers at a job, right? Oh, I'm the manager, right? And like, okay, what's that supposed to mean, right? Like they believe in the arrival method or the arrival theory, where it's like, oh, I'm a broker, don't talk to me like, or I'm a broker, I don't need to learn, or you know what, I'm successful, I don't need to take notes, or you know what, I'm successful, I don't need to read books, I'm successful, I don't need to improve, right? That's how unsuccessful people believe. They believe in the arrival theory, right? And look, I like me personally, I read for about 2 hours a day on mindset and leadership. Because I know personally, if I stop growing, I stop leading. So I got to grow. If I want to grow my company, if I want to grow my sales, if I want to grow my team, I have to grow myself. And if you don't believe that as a leader, you need to have a serious heart check. And number 3, so like remember number 2 is how they see learning. Number 3 is on one of the standout traits is how they view working. This is a big one. How they view working. Nobody, look, you guys, I'm gonna be straight up with you guys. Nobody truly loves, like, I love to pay it, but like when I say truly, like really truly, nobody truly loves to pay the price. For example, right? I go into, let's say I went into Gucci, right? Or Givenchy or Amiri or Louis Vuitton, one of my favorite brands, right? And I go in and I see a shirt for $1,000. No one truly loves to pay the price. No one is like, here's my $1,000, right? We do it, right? But no one truly loves paying the price, right? Because I wouldn't mind getting my Givenchy shirt for free. I wouldn't mind getting my Gucci shirt for free. I wouldn't mind getting my Louis Vuitton for free. I wouldn't mind getting a Lamborghini for free. So no one truly loves to pay the price. It's not a matter of who wants to pay it. It's a matter of who's willing to pay it. That's a big one, guys. So it's not a matter of who wants to pay, because truly no one loves to pay the price, but there's people willing to pay the price. That's why Givenchy's in business. That's why Gucci's in business. That's why Louis Vuitton's in business. That's why Lamborghini's in business. That's why Maybach's in business, because there's not people that are in love with paying $300,000 for a Maybach, like I did. Okay, there's not people in love with paying the price. There's people willing to pay the price. So when you gotta love getting up and working hard. No, you don't. You have to be willing to wake up every day and work hard, right? And look, the successful know they have to give it their all. Unsuccessful people, they don't believe in giving it their all. They don't even know what that is. Unsuccessful people don't even know what giving it their all is. They think giving it their all is showing up for a couple hours. They think giving it all is getting a couple reps in the gym. They think giving it all is freaking, they don't know. They don't know what it means to give it their all. Successful people know they have to give it their all. And look, there's a difference of working at 100% capacity and 99% capacity. Look, even if you work 99% capacity, you won't get nearly the results as 100% capacity. So, and look, people are like, oh, if I do 90, because, there's a lot of people that try to do 99% of the work, but they never do 100% of the work. Like, for example, what do you have to do? Get better, be accountable, right? Work hard, So there's people that try to cheat themselves, right? So instead of doing the 100% of the work, they only try to do 99% of the work, but 99% won't give you even close to the results as 100%. Even though it's only 1% short, it won't get you nearly half the results. And I'm going to tell you why. So like imagine like you're trying to cook a chicken, right? What happens if you don't cook a chicken properly? You get salmonella, right? So what happens is if you leave it, if it's 99% cooked, but it's not 100%, you'll get sick. If it's 100% cooked, you're good. That's how business works. That's how getting fit works. That's how relationships work. If you're not willing to give 100%, don't do it at all. If you're going 99%, don't do it. If you're not willing to give 100, don't do it. But I promise you, if you give 100%, 100% of the time, dude, you're going to be so freaking wealthy. It's going to be ridiculous. It's going to be ridiculous. It's going to be ridiculous. And successful people are all in. And what I mean by all in, mentally, physically, spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally. They're all in. All in is those three things: physically, emotionally, and mentally, all in. Not 99% in. I'm talking about 100%. Remember, if you're not willing to go 100, don't do it. So look, the business owner needs to believe. Look, check this out. Look, this is a big one. The business owner needs to believe that he has the best product and he's willing to defend his product. I remember seeing competitors. I remember going prospecting at the malls. I remember going prospecting at Topanga Mall, at Northridge Mall, and I would go there and I would see competitor companies or even people that think they're competitors, right? Prospecting people. Because I used to prospect. I used to walk up to people in the mall. Hey, how's it going? I do life insurance. Are you interested in getting life insurance? Blah, 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 right? And I would see competitors that were selling life insurance or trying to recruit more agents. And I remember getting so ticked off, I wanted to like slap these guys, right? And not really, but I did, right? But what I'm saying is I was mentally locked in, emotionally locked in, and the business owner, and I remember getting into fights with these guys, not physical fights, like arguments. And they would tell me their product, I would tell them ours. And I believed we have the best product. I defended our product. The business owner needs to feel he has the best product. He needs to believe he has the best product, and he needs to believe so much. Are you willing to defend what you do? Like like for example, this is the problem. This is the problem right here. Want me to tell you the problem? You sell houses, but you haven't sold one all month. You go to your family event, and guess what? Your friends, the people you call friends, the people you call family, are making fun of you because you're broke and you haven't sold a house, but you're not defending your dream. You're not defending what you do. And that's because you aren't 100% in. It doesn't matter if you're winning right now or if you're not. You need to believe in what you do, and you need to defend what you do at all costs. When I was losing in business, I never let nobody talk about my company. When I was losing in business, I never let no one just tell me, you guys get me? You got to be able to defend what you do, and you have to know what you do is right. Doesn't matter what business you're in. And look, that's the business owner. That's the successful business owner that believes that. But the employee doesn't need to defend his vanilla shake. So if you work at McDonald's, like, dude, go to McDonald's today, right? And be like, hey, bro, is the McDonald's vanilla shake your favorite vanilla shake ever? Nah. Their employees, they don't need to believe in their product. But if you go ask the CEO for McDonald's, is this the best vanilla shake? Heck yes, this is the best vanilla shake in the market. This is the best vanilla shake out in the world, because guess what? He has interest. The employee doesn't have interest. Not even the CEO. The CEO is an overpaid employee. I'm talking about, you go talk to the original owner of McDonald's and you ask him about his vanilla shake. He'd be so passionate about it. You try to talk smack about his vanilla shake, he'll smack you. You guys get me? That's how passionate you need to be for what you do. But not necessarily for what you do. You got to believe in what you do. Right? So look, big business owners are always looking to grow and expand, and they're always mentally in. Like when you go home, that's what I was talking about earlier. When you go home, you have to be locked in. When you're at the gym, you need to be locked in, and not at you know what I'm saying? When you have to be in growth mode, conquer mode 24/7 if you want to have great results. So they're big business owners are always locked in. Unsuccessful people don't think about their business as soon as they go home. You know what most of the problem is? If you're a real estate agent on here, your family has a cousin party at 6 p.m. and you go and you're not even thinking about selling a house. You're not even thinking about prospecting. You're not even thinking about growing your business. If you're an insurance agent, right? At the trainings, right after the training, you go home and you're not even thinking about tomorrow. You're not even thinking about what you need to do. The winners, they think about their business 24/7. I tell my guys, the only time you shouldn't be thinking about your business is when you're at church. That's the only time. Any time besides that, you need to be freaking locked in. Locked in. And look, all big business owners, I know, because dude, I know people making serious money. Like, I'm not talking about no, You know, because there's people say they make money. Okay, show me. You guys get me? Like, there's a lot of people on YouTube, and you got to be careful who you watch, because a lot of these guys don't make what they say they make. A lot of these guys, they're just I call them camera CEOs. They're camera bosses, right? You have to follow people that actually do what, like, if they're not respected in their industry, you go talk to people in my company. I'm the best at what I do. But look, check this out, okay? All the big business owners I know in any industry, in real estate and insurance, and those are in solar. I know some big people in solar. They are physically present. And why? So when I talk about physically present, it's not your muscles. I mean that's a trait. I mean, like, it helps to be fit and be successful, right? But what I'm saying is, if they have an office, they're physically at their office. Dude, you can't be successful without an office, just to let you know, okay? But all the successful people I know, they're at their office like 24/7, because being physically present helps them get in the zone. When I come into my office, like, I'm already in the zone before I get here, but when I get here, I lock in 100%. And that's what happens. So being physically present helps them get in the zone way faster, way quicker. And poverty-minded don't see the value in being physically present. These guys, I want to make millions of dollars at home on Zoom. Bro, like I said, you're trying to be one of the camera bosses, one of the camera CEOs. All the big business owners I know make it happen. They didn't get big over Zoom, champ. They did not. You guys get me, right? And the last thing that defines successful people versus unsuccessful people is attitude. And this is a huge one. Successful people have high attitudes. I always say this common phrase that, most people in business know about. Your attitude controls your altitude. Altitude is how high you could go. So your attitude is going to dictate 99.9% of the time how high you go. So these are a couple things about attitude that stand out to me, right? Number one is, how excited are you? Like, you're trying to get me to buy your product and you're not fired up. You're trying to get me to join your team and you're not fired up. You're trying to, as a business owner, what are you trying to do? You're trying to get people to move and you're not fired up. You need to, dude, the winners are freaking fired up. Like, I wake up fired up. I go to sleep fired up. It's hard. When you're a winner, it's hard for you to it's hard for you to go to sleep, because you're excited from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. So where's your excitement level? So attitude number one is, that's the first thing that comes up in my mind, is how excited is this person? Number two is, how's their attitude when they deal with problems? How do they handle problems emotionally? Sometimes, people get a flat tire and it messes up their day. And that day just lost you $2,000 in sales. That, like, people have such small IQs. Unsuccessful people have such small IQ. Such small EQs when it comes to dealing with problems. The successful people I know, you can't get knocked off your course. You guys, I've dealt with some big problems. I've dealt with some things, and guess what? I've never got knocked off course. Problems do not faze me. I know problems make me better, not bitter. And when you deal with problems, we can't control what happens to us, but we could control how we respond. So how do you respond to having issues? How do you respond to having problems? Because guess what? You know what the good thing about problems is? Everybody got them. You know what's the bad thing? Not everyone solves them. You need to be a problem solver. And how's your attitude when dealing with problems? Number three is humbleness. You don't need to be weak to be humble. Humble is knowing that you need to continue striving. Humble is knowing that you're not where you need to be at. Humble is knowing that you don't know everything. John Wooden says, once you know everything, he said something like, when you know what really counts is when you know everything, what you don't know, right? Or he says something like that, basically saying you need to be humble even though you're an expert. You need to be humble even though you're the best at what you do. You need to be humble even if you're crushing everybody in sales. Humbleness. I look for humble people. I look for the guy who's not who doesn't think he's good enough to throw out the trash. That's a big sign that I look for in agents. I look for, is this guy humble or is he fake humble? Is this guy willing to throw out the trash? Is this guy willing to set up some chairs? Is this guy willing to show up early? Is this guy humble in himself? So like, for example, some of the times is, I don't know about you guys, but I love when I have an agent that he comes from nothing. I love it. You know why? Because they're the most humble people most of the time. Most of the time, they're super humble. And I've had people join my business that were making $200,000 a year before coming in, $250,000 a year before coming into my organization. And they think that, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes they think that they're better than people. And they're not humble, so they don't succeed here because that pride is getting in between their success and their dreams. So number 3 is humbleness. Number 4 is, how do they handle success? What's your attitude when you're gaining success? Because, dude, honestly, you could get successful not having the right thinking. You can if you're super there's some people out there that are super gifted, but they have character issues, and they get to a point because they're super gifted. Trust me, I've seen a couple of these guys, but they have character issues and they don't know how to handle success. So they go up because they're talent, but they come down because their ego. They come down because they don't know how to handle success. They start treating people different. They think the Lamborghini makes them. They think the cars make them. They think the millions of dollars in their bank account makes them. When in reality, how were you before you got all that? You need to remind yourself that's where humbleness needs to come in, because if you're not humble, because a good mentor could help build up most people. But like, for example, there's a story, right? About a bird. He couldn't fly. He was weak, and there was a bull, and the bull goes, "Hey, if you eat my dung, my dung is packed up with nutrients." So the bird eats the dung. He gets stronger. He climbs up the first branch. The bird is trying to go to the top of the tree, and he eats the dung. He goes to the second branch. He eats the dung. He goes to the third branch, and then he eats the dung. He keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Goes to the fourth branch. He gets shot at the fourth branch by a hunter. So what am I saying? BS, bulls, could get you up, but it's just going to make you fall. You guys get me? So, how do these guys what's their attitude about handling success, and this last one, that's the biggest one, is what's their attitude when it comes to accountability? What's their attitude when it comes to accountability? Look, like, for example, when you talk to poverty-minded people, they're not fired up. When you talk to poverty-minded people, they dread in going to work. That's why they get off on Friday. They ball out Friday, Saturday. On Sunday, they're telling their family how they hate their boss and they don't want to go in tomorrow. But guess what? They still go in because they need the check. But they dread going to work. They are very stale and very mellow, right? Because they're not excited. Broke-minded people have poor outlooks when dealing with problems. They think everything happens to them, not for them, right? Some people who are studying, like, for example, you want to know a prime example of this? When some people, when they're studying for a real estate license, when they take let's say, because I've seen it, dude. I've seen it. When someone's studying for the real estate license, they take it, they fail, right? And they say, oh man, I'm going to take that as a sign I shouldn't be doing this. I mean, it is a sign, but not a sign that you should quit. It's a sign that you need to study harder, dude, right? But they have a victim mentality, poor me. And when things don't go their way, they tap out. And they have a very low EQ when dealing with adversity. EQ is emotional intelligence. They have a short EQ when it comes to handling adversity. And look, check this out. So how do people deal with accountability? What's their attitude when it comes to accountability? They don't feel like they need accountability. They have conveniency. If If you like, this is what you don't want to do if you're getting mentored by somebody. You don't want to have conveniency take over your mind. You should want discipline to take over your mind. Never have a convenient relationship with accountability. Dude, if your coach is telling you hop on a call at 9 o'clock in the morning every morning, he wants you here by a certain time, or maybe there's a certain thing that he maybe he wants to check how many numbers you're calling, how many people you contact, how many appointments you book, right? Don't be the person that has a convenient relationship with accountability, because what happens is, oh man, I'm tired today. You don't hop on. Oh man, you know what? I'm sick today. You don't hop on. Oh, it's my cousin's birthday party today. You don't hop on. You're actually hurting yourself. Don't let conveniency take over your mind when it gets tough. Let discipline take over your mind when it gets tough. And I promise you, if you let discipline take over your mind when it comes to accountability, guess what? You're going to have a lot of success. I love you guys. Hope you guys learned something. God bless you.
I don't want to die for them to miss me. Yes, I see.